Rightio. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's Transition to Management webinar for Queensland. We appreciate your attendance, and tonight we're hoping to provide an overview of what's coming up for Queensland over the next 3 years as we see our first detections of Varroa and as we learn the best ways to manage this pest for the long term. My name's Kathy, and I'm one of Queensland's 6 Varroa Development Officers. So first things first, I'd like to respectfully acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which we're meeting today, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. And I'd like to extend that respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today or watching our recording. So leading us in the webinar tonight is our fearless leader, Mr. Rob Stevens, Manager of Biosecurity Queensland's Varroa Mite Innovation and Resilience Initiative. Rob is probably a very familiar face to many of you, and he's going to begin by providing a Queensland update covering what our team have been up to and where we're heading next. Then I'm going to go into a little about the National Varroa Mite Management Program, how we're supporting beekeepers, and the geographical areas that we cover and what we do as VDOs. Following me, Dean Stephen will provide us with an update on some exciting innovation projects that are coming up on the horizon for Queensland beekeepers. And finally, Jake Lennon and Karen Hartley will talk about some key projects that they are focusing on for delivery over the next 3-year period. So before we get started properly with the content, I'd just like to remind everyone that this meeting is being recorded, and I'd like to just draw your attention to a few housekeeping items before we go on. So to make sure that our time together here is positive and productive, we just request that everyone maintain a professional and civil discourse throughout. Our presentation is going to run for about 45 minutes, and we will allow plenty of time for questions and answers at the end of the session. So during the webinar, please feel free to use the chat function, which you should be able to see along the top of your screen. There's icons. So using the chat icon, please, if you'd like to put your questions in there, and we will address those either as they come in or together towards the end of the seminar. So to get us rolling, I'd like to introduce Rob Stevens, and over to you, Rob.
Thank you, Kathy. We were definitely hoping for a quiet start to 2025, but unfortunately that's not what we've got, and there's a fair bit going on in the bee world. So I will try and move through this fairly quickly, but as Kathy said, pop your questions in the chat and we'll try and get to some of those at the end. So the main game is obviously Varroa Destructor from New South Wales. So it's been over 16 months now since September 2023, when the National Management Group agreed that eradication wasn't technically feasible in New South Wales, and we started the transition to management. Now we're looking at upwards of 2,000 reported findings of Varroa mite in New South Wales. And Varroa has been confirmed at almond pollination in Victoria as well. So there's 2 separate detections that have taken place in Vic. So I'd really encourage people to stay up to date with what's happening in the other jurisdictions. There's mapping available for both New South Wales and Victoria, and we'll pop some links in the chat to both of those. So the Varroa Mite Innovation and Resilience Initiative expands on the work that we delivered with the Varroa Mite Prevention and Preparedness program. We're aiming to support Queensland honeybee industry, hobby beekeepers and pollination-reliant industries, and we're hoping to continue supporting the significant preparedness efforts that we've been getting ready in that response from New South Wales. So our main goal is to ensure beekeepers are kept informed on what's going on in Queensland in our transition to management. So a brief update on Asian honeybees and Varroa jacobsoni at the Port of Brisbane. It's been nearly a year since we had one suspect mite was detected in one of our sentinel hives at the port. A movement control order was immediately put into place in February. Then a couple of weeks later, thanks to the support of the Queensland beekeepers, we did confirm a colony of Asian honeybees was found in the mangroves in close proximity to that sentinel hive of the initial detection. Genetic testing proved that this was a new incursion of Asian honeybees and not related to the bees up in far north Queensland in the Cairns area. So diagnostic testing confirmed that we had 37 mites in that Asian honeybee colony, and they were directly related to that initial mite that was found in the sentinel hive. So the program ran surveillance and eradication for about 18 weeks. And then at the end of last year, from September to December, we revisited the port and have been conducting enhanced surveillance where we covered over 1,000 kilometres on foot. And we found no additional evidence of Asian honeybees within the port. So we're very confident that the biosecurity risk of Asian honeybees and Varroa jacobsoni has been removed from the Port of Brisbane, but Biosecurity Queensland is going to continue to conduct some regular surveillance within the port every 6 weeks as part of our national bee pest surveillance activities, and we'll also be doing some additional presence-absence testing for Asian honeybees as well. So we also had detections of Asian honeybees in within Townsville last year. So there was 2 separate detections in the outer southern suburbs of Townsville in Roseneath and Cluden. So up to September, we found 6 separate colonies of Asian honeybees throughout our enhanced surveillance. 5 of those colonies were actually found in industrial equipment that we think was directly linked to movements from Cairns. So, and there was a 6th colony that was found in a tree in a nearby property. So genetic testing confirmed that all these colonies originated from the Cairns KIA. At the moment, that Cairns KIA extends to around Cardwell. That's 170 kilometres north of Townsville. So we are trying to aim to keep Townsville free of Asian honeybees, but it was quite obvious that these ones were an extension of the host range from Cairns. But we're pretty confident that there's no evidence of additional Asian honeybees in the presence-absence testing we've done since those 6 colonies were destroyed. Unfortunately, though, we started the new year with a bang. On New Year's Eve, we've started a response to a new detection of Asian honeybee within the port of Townsville. So 1 colony was removed from a storage shed on land within the port. This nest was destroyed. So testing has confirmed that this colony was not carrying any mites, and it's also come back negative for exotic viruses. So we're going to continue our work with high-risk stakeholders within the port and our counterparts in the Commonwealth Department of Ag and Fisheries and Forestry, and that surveillance will carry on for a few more weeks yet. But at present, we believe we caught this very early. We don't believe it's linked to Cairns. We think it's a new incursion with possible links to PNG. Now, another thing I wanted to mention was the National Virus Benchmarking Project, which is well underway. So the national project is a key initiative of the National Varroa Mite Management Program and designed to strengthen and future-proof Australian industries and pollination-reliant industries. So it'll deliver a nationwide honeybee virus survey to establish existing baseline for endemic bee viruses. So the data collected will be used to build a knowledge base and provide continued confidence that exotic viruses remain free from Australia. So results from these collections will be used for future baselining. Results from future collections will be baselined against these results. So it's really important that we collect samples from key geographical areas throughout the state. We want to really ensure that Queensland is well represented in this national survey. So if we do have any beekeepers that are interested in participating in the virus benchmarking, we'll drop a link in the chat and you can fill out an expression of interest, and one of our VDOs will be in contact with you. You can also email us at varroa@daf.qld.gov.au. Now, on 20th of December 2024, movement restrictions for European honeybees and bee-related equipment were lifted in the ACT. This decision was made following a decision made by the ACT government that there's natural spread was inevitable and there was no further point in those movement restrictions. That means that now bees and beekeeping equipment can go into the ACT from states that have Varroa, like New South Wales and Victoria. So we're keen to close that loophole, and you will probably expect to see some correspondence from us in the coming days to highlight that a movement restriction will be in place. That'll probably take effect from late January and will be in effect till late April. Now, that will be backdated. It will ensure that anyone that has moved any bees or beekeeping equipment since the 1st of September will be required under our legislation to report movement from the ACT. Look, we don't think this is going to tie up any real Queensland beekeepers. Look, a permit system will be in place, and we'll be happy to work with beekeepers if they are adversely affected by this. But this is mainly a precautionary measure to ensure we're closing a loophole where bees can't go from an infested jurisdiction via the ACT. Now, it's also a matter of time before Varroa does inevitably cross our border through natural spread. So you'll see the map on the left shows all our registered hive sites in New South Wales. The map on the right shows the closest detection on the New South Wales heat map at present, which is property near Byron Bay, about 40 kilometres south of Coolangatta. So obviously the Gold Coast area is and southeast Queensland in general is the most densely populated beekeeping area in Queensland and one of the more densely populated areas in Australia. So I will just highlight that when you see these areas go hot on the heat maps in other jurisdictions, it is working on what we call a graticule system, which de-identifies your information, and it does put like a 10-kilometre radius around detection sites. So you can tell how many detections have been in your local vicinity. So unfortunately, there was some news that came out of today. Earlier today, Varroa was confirmed at 2 sites in Boggabilla, New South Wales, and that's one of these sites is only 3 kilometres from the Queensland border. So you can expect to see the New South Wales heat mapping be updated tomorrow to reflect this new hot area in Boggabilla. So obviously we've got Queensland beekeepers that are very, very close to the New South Wales border and very close to Boggabilla. So we just want to throw out a big thank you to the beekeeper involved, though. He obviously had no idea he had moved infested hives up that close to the border. He found he was doing some follow-up testing at another site in New South Wales, which returned a positive result, and he immediately notified authorities that there was a risk up this way. So that initiated testing, and those results came in today that we do have 2 separate detections at the sites in Boggabilla. So just to highlight just how quickly we would expect natural spread to occur, this video horrifies me a little bit, but it just shows you how quickly the mite can jump from one bee to another. So you can imagine what will happen with Varroa mites foraging in similar sites to bees on either side of the border. It is just a matter of time. Unfortunately, we cannot stop natural spread of Varroa once it is in these key areas. So we're still planning for 4 different pathways that Varroa could get into Queensland. Obviously, with this news, our money would be on natural spread pathway being the first instance of Varroa detected in Queensland. We're also planning for those human-assisted pathways as well. So via legal means, through legal movement from New South Wales or Victoria under permit, but also illegal movement as well. And look, there's always the possibility that Varroa could be found again in Queensland as a result of a new incursion, as we had with Varroa jacobsoni in Brisbane, and there's always the potential with Varroa jacobsoni at the Port of Townsville as well. So our aim is to slow the spread. Like I said, there's nothing we can do to stop it completely. It is inevitable that Varroa will be found. So what will it look like when Varroa does get here? Unfortunately, Queensland is a very large state, and different regions are going to be on different timelines for that what we call the invasion curve. So that'll be influenced by things like the amount of wild colonies and also the amount of managed hives in any particular region and the amount of movement happening within that region. So, for example, we could have fully established Varroa populations in southeast Queensland before parts of northern Queensland even get a detection. So, excuse me, that will be one of the challenges we have in Queensland, that we are a large state and we are going to have different regions operating on different timelines. So what we've learned from New South Wales, though, is that the biggest contributor is that hive movement. So once Varroa is in Queensland, we do expect it to be spread quite quickly through those distribution channels. So when it comes to the invasion curve, obviously Queensland's still very much in the initial stages. We're in the orange, where we're still in that prevention stage. It's really important, though, to emphasise that we are not anticipating to have eradication and containment phases in Queensland. We're not going to be mounting eradication when Varroa is first detected, and containment will be purely done via slowing the spread. There won't be widespread movement control. So whereas parts of New South Wales are already well and truly in the blue section of this invasion curve, where Varroa is well and truly established. So Queensland's main aim is to minimise the impact of Varroa on the honeybee and pollination-reliant industries, and that's to benefit you as beekeepers as well as pollination-reliant industries. So we're trying to achieve this by reducing the risk of Varroa transmission, slowing the spread, enhance bee biosecurity and business resilience. It's strengthening the relationships with community and industry capacity, and really highlighting the need for beekeepers to understand integrated pest management. And we want to build pollination security and encourage data-driven decision making through things like the heat mapping, which we'll go into shortly. So we've got the three-stage approach in Queensland. We're in stage 1 now, where the whole state is a Varroa Mite biosecurity zone. Our focus is on detection, education, training, and setting up these for stage 2. Look, Queensland has been proactive, and we have recently, towards the end of last year, ensured that we have transferred from APVMA permits from surveillance permits to treatment ones. So you can now purchase miticide in Queensland, but you shouldn't be using it yet. There's no need to be using chemicals for treatment for Varroa until we have Varroa. But it is now completely legal to start purchasing those Varroa treatments in Queensland. So the next stage will be when we get to these inevitable detections across the border. We'll be really encouraging IPM. We won't be doing widespread movement control. We will be doing some track and tracing to try and figure out what pathway the Varroa got here. And our interstate movement will start to gradually open up, and we'll start looking at more longer term movements before eventually moving to harmonisation with some of the other jurisdictions. So stage 3 is more that long-term management, where we're going to be looking into legislative and regulatory updates. So that involves things like reclassifying Varroa. At the moment, it's what we call prohibited matter. It'll probably move into one of the restricted matter classifications as it becomes endemic in Queensland. So we're making sure that all the stages of our response align to the national strategy moving forward. So like I said, we're in stage 1 now. We could be in stage 2 very soon. The long-term goal for stage 3 is that long-term management. But it's at this point that I might throw you over back to Kathy, who's one of our talented Varroa development officers. She's going to take you through some of the exciting work that we're delivering for Queensland under the National Varroa Mite Management Program. Thanks, Kathy.
Thanks, Rob. So what is a Varroa Development Officer? We call ourselves VDOs. We work as part of the transition to management team to build capacity and to manage or deal with Varroa mite issues. So we've been appointed for 12 months, and we are aiming to address all areas of Varroa management and hive health through formal and informal training in the field and at group meetings. So we're engaging with commercial and recreational beekeepers, supporting the National Virus Benchmarking Project that was mentioned earlier. And we're always looking to learn from beekeepers and refine our experiences to support industry. So the allocation of staffing to the different jurisdictions you can see across Australia is proportional to the size of the beekeeping industry. So in Queensland, we've got 4 full-time VDOs, 2 part-time VDOs, and 1 full-time coordinator. And the key message here is that we're stakeholder engagement, and we do education and extension. We do not have anything to do with compliance. So we're ready for the next slide, where I'm introducing who are we. So who are your VDOs? There's 6 of us. We're all experienced beekeepers. Carla's in the far north Queensland, plus Mackay and Whitsundays area. Carla's a former team leader in the 2016 Varroa Mite Eradication Program. Then we've got Gavin in the central and western region, plus Wide Bay. Gav has 30 years career in farming and experience with organic and biodynamic agronomy. And then there's Sarah, who's covering the Darling Downs and the Southwest. Sarah's a former DAF exotic pest surveillance officer and has recent commercial beekeeping experience from New Zealand where they're living with Varroa. And then there's 3 of us covering the southeast corner where the vast majority of beekeeping registrations are. So Keith, who's a semi-commercial beekeeping operator here on the Gold Coast, breeding queens and producing honey. Then there's Tonya, who brings from New Zealand 10 years of hands-on working in commercial scale apiaries, facing Varroa on the daily. And then there's myself. I have some experience in both commercial and recreational sectors. And there are links coming up in the chat for how you guys can get in touch with us if you haven't already got contact details. We're ready for the next slide, where we're showing the videos in action here. So our target over the course of our contract is to engage with 1,200 interactions within our funding allocation. And so here we are in action, showing the number of participants on the map. The bigger blobs mean a larger number of people in an activity. So we have lots of different training events, workshops. Obviously, the larger circles represent larger numbers of people coming along to those events. And there's some pictures of us doing some field work with our target audience, the beekeepers themselves. So we've been drawing crowds of up to 90 people at one particular meeting. These are hands-on where we can. We're getting out into the field with beekeepers, doing practical learning, sharing skills, and gaining some traction within the beekeeping community. Our next slide shows the different regions and the branches that we're covering. So on the left, you can see Queensland's divided into those 6 different distinct regions. The videos are available to travel, and we do aim to continue interacting with all the different regions in Queensland. So you're very welcome to contact us at any time. So far, our response has met the target. So we've interacted with all of our regions to date. And we've been really getting the message out there. So you can see on the right-hand side, our team have interacted with 100% of the target for recreational beekeeping groups and organisations in Queensland. And we've also been in touch with 100% of the Queensland, the QBA branches. But we would be very keen to hear from anyone who has not yet met or spoken with one of the VDO team to date. We have had over 335 interactions to date, and that represents over 2,000 individual participants. On the next slide, which is my last one, you can see our training seminars in action. Showing here we have the National Varroa Mite Management Program training workshops, the ones held at Surfers, Townsville and Ipswich. It's a popular, well-subscribed program, gets pretty good feedback. And so far we have covered registrations representing 14% of the hives in our state. So there's other workshops coming up, which I'll just quickly mention. In February, we've got one coming up in Mackay, in Gympie and in Maroochydore. And then in March, there's Warwick, Callum Vale and Bundaberg. So if you've not yet got along to one of those workshops, or you know someone who would benefit, please encourage them. And before I finish, I just want to put in a plug for the online training, the Varroa Basics online training, which is now available, and we highly recommend everyone have a look at that training. It's online, it's free, it's short and easy. So there should be a link coming up in the chat as well. And thank you. I'll hand over now to my colleague Dean.
Thanks, Kathy. Well, where are we heading now over the next 3 years? So we've already got beekeepers who are already thinking about going to almonds in 2025. In 2024, we closely work with the beekeepers intending on travelling to almond pollination to develop a set of conditions to allow them to travel back to Queensland in the event of a detection in Victoria. Unfortunately, they did have that detection while they were in Victoria, but however, that time that we'd worked on the conditions prior to them leaving allowed us to work together to come together with some conditions that allowed them to come back into Queensland. As Varroa becomes endemic in Queensland, there will be legislative changes from prohibited to restricted matter, which Rob mentioned before, potential use of lesser restricted areas, and updates to our biosecurity regulations and our Varroa Mite biosecurity zone. We also have two exciting programs that will assist the beekeeping community as we traverse the next 3 years. My colleagues Jake and Karen will talk about the Bee Biosecurity Roundtable and the innovation grants later in the webinar. Next slide, please. I would like to talk briefly about the innovative tools and projects that we are involved in. The BeeRite technology is an extension of the Purple Hive project, which uses a multi-camera system to image bees and use AI algorithms to detect Varroa. The BeeRite system is a system of sensors installed in the hive that measure temperature, humidity, sound and vibration to feed into AI algorithms, and then these algorithms are then used to analyse the data and detect the presence of Varroa in those hives. Biosecurity Queensland has been involved in this BeeRite project, assisting with the validation of the system for Australian conditions. The photo in the slide shows the BeeRite on the bottom left hand is the sensors that go in the hive, and then on the right hand side it's the BeeRite system being installed at the Port of Townsville, which is replacing the Purple Hive that was installed there. And this is just a further example of how government, industry and the beekeeping community are working together to the surveillance of Varroa mite. Next slide, please, Rob. B123, which I hope we're all familiar with and I hope we're all using. There'll be a link in the chat to the B123 system for those who haven't already have it. B123 uses an ArcGIS platform, which allows you to use a web-based form or alternatively an app in their smartphone to enter their surveillance data. You can enter the data directly into the system in the field, or if you're in an area with limited mobile reception, it will store the data and enter when you become into reception. We also understand that some other jurisdictions are asking for validation of your surveillance data, and B123 will quickly be able to do this, and you can print out a report, which if you're moving into another jurisdiction will allow you to prove that. Moving forward, this is going to be an invaluable tool to track the movement of Varroa through the landscape, recording both our negative and our positive results. Since its inception, there has been over 2,500 entries submitted. We would like to thank the beekeepers who use B123 and encourage everyone to either start using B123 or to continue using it. Next slide, thank Rob. The surveillance data that we receive from the B123 and also our government-led surveillance data are being used to create hot and cold mapping, which is available online for our beekeepers to use. In time, beekeepers will be able to use these cool and hot maps to make informed decisions about where to move their hives to, or indeed introduce hives into their apiary from an area. Commercial beekeepers will use these maps to determine the risk they are facing going to a certain area for the monitoring or possible treatment of their hives when they're in that area. New South Wales and Victoria also have similar mapping systems available, which all add to the picture of Varroa across the eastern seaboard. Next slide, thanks Rob. The permitting system that we introduced to be able to move Varroa mite carriers from states where Varroa mite has been found has been one of our major innovations over the last 2 years. The permitting system on the department's website is very generic in its nature, as it has to serve many masters. We designed a bespoke application package to allow us to gather further information from the beekeeper to assist in the assessment of their application and the issuing of the permit if available. Being web-based, this allowed the beekeeper to fill in the form at a time that suits them rather than being tied to a business hours phone call from a biosecurity officer. Once this form was submitted, we receive an email notifying us that the application has been submitted, and then we can turn these permits around very, very quickly. As you can see from the table on the left, the average time to assess and issue the biosecurity instrument permit is just over 1 day from receiving the second stage application. This enables us to work quickly with the beekeepers as they face the challenging conditions and other challenges, which allows them to remain within the regulations as well as maintaining business viability. Next slide, thanks Rob. Then using this data from the permitting system, we're able to incorporate into the department's mapping system to visually identify the to and from points of the various types of permits issued. This allowed us very quickly to analyse the movements and the potential need for track and trace activities as infested premises were identified. This map shows the to and from lines overlaid over the heat map from New South Wales and the Queensland cool mapping. This allowed us to visually assess any movements that may have had a detection since the permits were issued for carriers from this area. Being able to quickly differentiate the types of movement also allowed us a very quick visual assessment of the relative risk associated with this movement. For example, a permit issued for irradiation is very low risk compared to a movement of live bees. I'd like now to hand over to Jake Lennon to speak more about the Bee Biosecurity Roundtable.
Thanks, Dean. As mentioned, my name is Jake. I'm a Principal Policy Officer in Vermeer, and I'll be taking you through some of my key projects, first of which is the Bee Biosecurity Roundtable. So what is this roundtable? Well, it's a collaborative forum using an external facilitator, and it'll bring together a wide range of perspectives and expertise, which aims to create management strategies that address the multifaceted needs within the beekeeping community through a model of shared responsibility. So the roundtable, it's a signature event that will generate strategies that will basically help inform the legacy of Vermeer. It is likely that the roundtable will be held in March or April this year, and it is estimated it will run for 2 days, likely in a face-to-face setting. So why are we holding a roundtable? Well, living with Varroa effectively over the long term will require industry to craft new ways of managing bees and industry adaptation. Currently, stakeholder perspective, appetite, insight, expertise for what these new management strategies should, can, or may look like is unknown. Finally, there is a great window of opportunity for us to choose collaboration over crisis, to choose action over reaction. Next slide, thanks, Rob. So who will be attending? There will be quite a broad range of beekeeping stakeholders, including peak bodies such as QBA, ARBIC, etc., beekeeping clubs, research institutions, industry experts, and many others. It is estimated there will be approximately 60 to 80 participants. Next slide, thanks, Rob. Okay, so my next project that I'd like to talk about is my behavioural analysis project. So what is this analysis? Well, DPI Vermeer will be engaging the services of an external behavioural analysis expert who will conduct qualitative and quantitative research, which will be performed annually over 3 years from 2025 to 2027. This will allow us to understand beekeeper behaviour towards a wide variety of Varroa aspects in both pre and post Varroa incursions in Queensland, and essentially allow us to evaluate if our engagement has been successful. So why are we completing this behavioural analysis? To build on the above, the Vermeer program, it has quite a strong engagement and education focus for industry behaviour, and current beekeeper behaviour regarding Varroa is unknown, particularly after that engagement. Behavioural analysis is basically a method of measuring the effectiveness of Vermeer's engagement, including identifying where we can improve our engagement moving forward. Next slide, thanks, Rob. And who will be participating? Again, there'll be a diverse range of Queensland beekeepers from each Queensland zone. And whilst there are many factors that go into behaviour, and it gets quite conceptual, our key target audience will include commercial and recreational beekeepers, new and experienced beekeepers, and beekeepers who have a reliance on queen bee breeding. Okay, now I'll introduce Karen, who is the Senior Project Officer in the Vermeer Grants Program. Karen comes from a grants management background, with her previous role being at the Commonwealth Department of Industry, Science and Resources. Over to you, Karen.
Thanks, Jake. So we're excited to be planning a grant program called the Community Bee Innovation Fund. So a grant program can contribute to helping Queensland beekeepers and pollination-reliant industries get ready for Varroa mite and build resilience for when it arrives. A grant program can be a really useful way to ensure that the tools and education available to the industry are actually what you want and what you need. So it does this by collaborating with industry and funding projects that will be beneficial to you. The reason we're planning a grant program is because it offers a number of benefits. So firstly, a grant program can encourage industry collaboration across regions and industries that perhaps wouldn't normally occur. Secondly, it taps into the wealth of knowledge and ideas that beekeepers have about Varroa mite management and extracts those to create innovative solutions. Thirdly, a grant program focused only on Queensland can result in ensuring management, monitoring and information is relevant to the unique conditions that Queensland beekeepers face. And finally, a grant program allows time for innovative thinking that is sometimes put on the back burner. So it can create innovative solutions and problem solving. So let's have a look at what the grant program might look like on the next slide, please. So it's anticipated that there will be 3 rounds of grant funding available over 3 years. And projects funded by the grant program will need to either deliver innovative Varroa mite education and training or develop innovative Varroa mite management tools. So the focus is that, as you can see there, is about innovation with the key areas of education and management tools. Next slide, please. So what kind of projects could the grant program possibly fund? Possible ideas could include developing a new Varroa mite monitoring technique. Perhaps you have some new idea that could work. You could host a Varroa mite management field day in your region to demonstrate practical methods of monitoring and management and encourage regional beekeepers to communicate and coordinate treatments. You may want to modify an existing Varroa mite management tool to suit Queensland geographical areas and climatic conditions, because we know there's a lot of tools out there, but they're not specific to Queensland. So that could be a potential project, or perhaps it would be useful to deliver an education program for pollination-reliant industries so that they increase their Varroa mite awareness. Those are just some ideas, but it's really driven by the industry themselves. So next slide, please. So we anticipate that the grant program will be launched soon, so be ready. Get your thinking caps on, talk to each other and come up with some ideas. This is an opportunity to ensure that what you want and need to manage Varroa mite becomes a reality. So I hope to have more details for you very soon. If you scan the QR code that's on the screen at the moment, you can sign up to the Bee e-alert just to be kept up to date in terms of everything Varroa related, but also the grant program when it does get ready to be launched. So I'll hand back to Rob now to wrap up the presentation. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, Karen, and thanks to the team for updating us on some of the exciting work that the program is doing all over the state. So we've moved through this fairly quickly. But before we move on to questions, I just really wanted to highlight the importance of collaboration and working with industry moving forward. So that is a big theme of our program, obviously. So and goal is to provide up-to-date info for Varroa Mite management, increase community engagement and participation, and things like the roundtable are going to help us to jointly develop management strategies with industry. So you guys have got a seat at the table in the decision-making process as we start to transition to management with Varroa Destructor in Queensland. So it truly is about working together, and that's to minimise the impacts that Varroa is going to have on you and your industry and pollination-reliant industries here in Queensland. So now is definitely the time to network. You don't want to go this alone. Working together is going to be the best way to get through this period of upheaval for the Queensland beekeeping industry. And with that, we've got a good 10-15 minutes left for questions. I might throw over to the team and see if anything's come through the chat. We've only got a fairly small audience today. I will highlight that this session is being recorded. We will put this up online on our YouTube channel. We anticipate a lot more people will get to watch this after the fact. If you've got any follow-up questions you can't think of or don't get time to get up tonight, feel free to email varroa@daf.qld.gov.au. I'll throw over to the team and see if we've got any questions.
Rob, there's just a question from Trevor just regarding the some more information about the recent detection today at the Boggabilla, those two Boggabilla sites. Have you got some information on numbers or mite loads?
Mite load, so two separate sites. It's only very early days. This surveillance took place this afternoon. The first site had above threshold levels of mite. The other site did not, had very low levels of mite. And the initial detection that the beekeeper encountered in New South Wales only had low levels of mites as well. They did the right thing. They alerted New South Wales that there was a tracing risk to the border. And yeah, multiple sites were tested today and two have come back positive, one above and one below treatment threshold.
Thanks, Rob. Rob, that's about all the questions we've actually got in the chat. So if anyone else would like to throw a question in the chat, more than happy for any of us to answer your queries.
Just give you a minute or two. Like I said, this will be available for later. Feel free to contact us or go through your videos anytime. Obviously, it is a bit unsettling, the detection today, but this is something we've been preparing for. It was definitely one of the pathways that we anticipated Varroa would come into Queensland. Unfortunately, it is an inevitability, and that's exactly why we are transitioning management, because it is going to travel across the border, whether we like it or not, in the very near future. So really important that beekeepers sign up for that e-alert. There's only so many times you'll get information through our registration system. If you haven't signed up to the bee alert, you should now. That is your best source of information moving forward for all the copious amounts of changes that are coming to your industry in the near future.
So, Rob, we've just got another question from Murray asking about going to almonds and come back this year. Some of the people are starting to want to plan about their almonds movements. Have we got any update we can give Murray?
It's definitely something we want to work on, similar to last year, but with a little bit more time up our hands. It is a very layered question. There are some things outside of our control. It will be dependent on what happens in Victoria and what restrictions they put on place. But look, we're fully cognizant of the fact that we need to start opening up for industry. We need to have a higher level of risk appetite. But at the same time, we don't want to do anything silly and prematurely introduce Varroa into Queensland from another jurisdiction. But at the moment, it is our intention to start having those conversations early with beekeepers that are keen to go to almonds, and to work with our colleagues in the other jurisdictions about finding a way for that to happen safely and to get beekeepers home without Varroa.
Thanks, Rob. If there's any more questions, just throw them in the chat. You know, you've got us for another fair few minutes yet, and Rob's keen to answer more questions. I know that. Look at him; he's very keen.
We're ready to go.
Or any other questions from Jake or Karen or myself. we're more than happy to answer anything that you would like to ask.
And look, we will try to start having these webinars a bit more often. We're in a key phase of our program right now. The next quarter, a lot of action will be taking place, like Jake and Karen have alluded to, the Bee Biosecurity Roundtable, the behavioural analysis, the grant project. We'll start to have some specific themes to some webinars in the future. Hopefully we can promote them a bit better, get some attendance, get some buy-in from industry. We really want to encourage recreational beekeepers to be working with their local biosecurity champions and the bee clubs that they're associated with as well. It's going to be that networking that is essential for passive information. We've only got the Varroa development officers are time limited as well. Unfortunately, we don't have them forever. The national program has only funded the Varroa development officers for a set period of time. It's really important that people don't wait until Varroa is already here until they start educating themselves. So again, sign up for our updates, keep coming to webinars. We'll try and have a few different themes moving forward. I'm sure we'll have more story to tell on these porter detections and the surveillance we've got planned in Queensland. I would expect that if you're a beekeeper in the Gundawindi area, you might hear from us in the very near future.
Rob, that's all we've got. We haven't got any other questions yet.
Rightio. Well, we won't keep you for no reason. Like I said, feel free to pop your questions via email or to one of your videos or to us directly. You can always call the call centre to contact our team as well. We're here to support you. We're here till 30 June 2027. So we might wrap it up. Like I said, this will be recorded. You will be able to watch this later. You will be able to let any of your colleagues know the information you saw tonight that they will be able to find online. So thank you very much for coming, everyone, and we'll see you again soon.